Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Up Close and Personal, the podcast that we've created really all around the show that has been invented for a need that I think we've all agreed is absolutely out there and wanted from the whole industry, from many sectors and many channels, which is the personalization experience. My name is Richard Askam. I'll be the host on this episode, and I'm joined today by two guests, both of whom are in the US. So we're time zone crazy today, unfortunately. But I've got Kaspars Kirsis in Carolina. Is that right?
I'm actually right now in Europe, but yeah, we can call it North Carolina.
There you go. I should have done my research better, but I do know that Mark Sanderson from FESPA is in the US. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Excellent. Whereabouts?
Hello, everybody.
Where are you, Kaspars?
I'm in Riga, Latvia. So that is part of Northern Europe. It's a small country. Actually, where one of Printful's European headquarters are based.
Gotcha. Gotcha. There we go. So and I'm in the UK for anybody that's interested. Not that you are, so that's fine. So, but you're both welcome, gentlemen, to today's episode. And really, it's just an opportunity for you guys to chat really around the broader topic of personalization and kind of what it means to you as an individual, as a family member, as a consumer, and how the industry needs to really grapple and grasp hold of the opportunities that are plentiful, but not necessarily lined up. And that's something that I've spent a few years talking about, joining the dots in terms of the opportunity. And so I thought this was a great chance to get you two guys together on the podcast today to talk about it. So if you're happy, I'm going to start you off in the same way that I would always start, is literally to ask you to introduce yourselves and also the organization that you work for. Kaspars, if you wouldn't mind going first.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, my name is Kaspars. I'm head of sales at Printful. So Printful is one of the world's biggest made-to-order and print-on-demand companies. Essentially, we produce items like T-shirts, mugs, phone cases, different kind of, I think, more than 400 different items, specifically on demand. And we're very, very heavy on personalization because on-demand production is pretty much all about personalization and giving consumers something that is not necessarily made in bulk, but something made specifically for them. So yeah, I think we're big on this, definitely. So yeah, that's shortly about me.
Great, thanks, Kaspars. And Mark, over to you.
Cool. Hi, everybody. Mark Sanderson. I head up the FESPA for the Americas, and also am driving the sales for the personalization experience, based in the US, and have been in the print industry for as long as I can remember, in all different aspects. And the personalization side of print is incredibly important. And I think with what we're trying to do with the show, we're trying to expand people's thought process regarding than just putting a name on something.
Absolutely. And Mark, thank you. I know it's stupid o'clock where you are. I think you're in Colorado this morning.
Yeah, I'm in Denver this morning, so it's a bit early. There you go.
So, but however, Kaspars is in Europe, so we're all good. Daylight, it's all great over here. So that's fun. So Kaspars, you mentioned Printful. They're obviously a very well-known company in the world of personalization. But let's start by having a look how you got into this as an individual and as a consumer. I'm always interested to hear from people what personalization actually means, and it's what it means to you to receive something, to produce something. You know, when did you first really sort of become aware of the opportunity to add a degree of individualization to stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think when I started at Printful, that was nearly 5 years ago. What really was exciting for me, and I think this is, how print-on-demand industry in general has shaped everything and how we buy things. What was really exciting for me Printful has hundreds of thousands of small entrepreneurs trying to build something on their own and trying to build either apparel brand or any kind of brand that can be built on Printful's capabilities. And as a result, if such a large pool of small entrepreneurs are trying to build something on their own, that leads to a massive choice, but also a very personalized approach, right? When you are building something for a very specific niche at relatively big scale, but there is not one company that tries to capture everything and then try to find something that works for everybody. But there are hundreds of thousands of small entrepreneurs that are building something for a very specific niche, very personalized, very, very targeted. And I think that was very, very exciting for me. And I mean, right now, I'm very much into this. Like, I'm right now buying Christmas gifts. I'm pretty much all around Etsy and small stores, and I'm just amazed and about, you know, how much interesting things are out there that are relevant for me particularly. A lot of these things are actually made on demand and made to order. And it doesn't necessarily is limited only to, you know, having your name on an item. It can be something much more sophisticated and more custom made. I think it's super exciting. And I love personally, you know, also giving from myself gifts like that. I think that's a very unique connection and something more interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you, and that's really insightful. Actually, I've always thought that you know, part of the gift buying process is to understand the joy, if you like, the surprise and delight, I think is the phrase, of the recipient, and whenever you can use something that deploys that thought in an unexpected way on a product, I think that really adds value. Mark, back to you. Same question, really, in terms of what personalization means to you.
Well, to me, and we've spoken about it a couple of times. It's about receiving something that's sort of semi-unexpected that makes you feel special. It's something that you receive, and it doesn't necessarily matter too much what that item is. To me, that item links back to an event or an experience that I've had. And make something special, and things like that tend to be things that people keep, and it could be a golf tag on a golf day, for instance, you know, and it doesn't have your name on it, but it's something that relates back to a certain event that's happened during your life that you've tend to keep. And I suppose one of the interesting things about this is I moved house recently, and it was amazing how many things I found in drawers that were actually personalized or to do with an experience that I'd kept, that, you know, frankly, that they didn't make the move, but it brought back some very fond memories, and it is almost a physical keepsake of something.
Well, that's a really interesting point, and it's the emotional sort of touch point of anything that's personalized. And you know, we get caught up a little bit, Kaspars, in the world of consumer products, but actually from time to time it can be a photograph which when you turn over, there's a little line on the back, and, you know, a lyric from a song, or, you know, memories. It's a way of encapsulating people's emotional memories, and you know, and when they're presented with them, the degree of thought that is evident is where the value actually is. And I know, of course, it's a consumerized world and a commercial world, but really the currency here is emotion. Is that a reasonable perspective?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. And again, it's, you know, the concept itself, it might not be something necessarily new on its own, but I think that the technology just has helped it to take it on a completely different level. Like, imagine just, you know, hey, you know, I have a friend, and now I can, and also from a brand perspective, you're selling something and you're trying to market something, and then, you know, there's a person that, you know, this Justin Bieber's song is the favorite one, and they have listened to it, you know, 10,000 times. You know, the data shows that has happened. And then, you know, a brand can very successfully target, because they know that this is important, and they target this person and present like, hey, here's a t-shirt with the lyrics of this song. And that can be, first of all, done at scale. It's extremely personalized, and it can also only be achieved with the made to order technology, which, you know, it doesn't actually exist not that distant in distant past. So I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, and I guess this is where technology has made something that is incredibly complicated look simple and feel simple for the consumer. And Mark, I think Kaspars makes a really interesting point there, that you know, the whole deployment of something meaningful. You know, where do you see, from your experience in the print industry, where do you see that working really well at the moment, and more importantly, where do you see the opportunities?
it's interesting. So my background, to say, was print. Back in the day, you had some artwork, you had a typographer, you shot the artwork. The actual the barrier to actually making something personal or bespoke was horrific. I mean, print took forever, and I think with digital technology today and the web to print, and I was going to ask you, Kaspar, about the customer, the demographic, because my age group and older, yeah, we're very scared about print. The cost that were associated with you signing a proof were horrific. Whereas today, it pops up on screen with a PDF. You look at it, you go, "Oh, it's okay." You press the button, you get going at it. The cost has completely changed, and I think has changed people's perception of what you can do with digital and with web to print. And I think that's only that's also, the technology is going at such a pace now. You're seeing people do personalization on glass. You're seeing in the metal canning industry, and then you talk about sustainability, people going away from plastic. The actual technology out there to allow you to be more personal, and to create that experience, is just leaps and bounds. And I'm sure you can share some of the leaps and bounds that you've made over the past in 10 years, from what was possible to what is possible today. It's changing literally rapidly. And I said, I don't think there's anything you can't actually personalize these days. I might be wrong. You'll probably say that to me, but I think technology has made this new landscape for entrepreneurs very possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly. And I'm an entrepreneur, and what is exciting for me is to understand how this personalization can be done at scale. And there are a lot of areas where we have achieved that. And digital printing, or for example, direct to garment, where you effectively just take a T-shirt and we then digitally print something on it. That has changed massively in 10 years. So now we can pretty much do one-ups all the time. Every design can be fully custom, fully unique design. So that is very exciting. I think we're still, and I'm talking more, for example, about fashion and maybe getting too specific, but where, again, I see the next big leap in terms of technology, that, hey, you can go in at a big fashion brand and you can fully customize your dress. You can fully customize your sweater. And there is we don't really have, and you can do that. It's not like you can't do that, but the brands can't market that kind of thing at scale because it doesn't scale. There's still a lot of things that just don't scale up in that supply chain to make it fully custom. Although I think once we figure that part out, consumers, that's going to be, again, change the world completely.
You're listening to Up Close and Personal. My name is Richard Askam, and my guests today are Mark Sanderson from FESPA in the US and Kaspars Kirsis, who it turns out is in Riga. And I maybe should have found that out before I introduced him as being in America. Apologies again. You make a really interesting point there, though, Kaspars, and I guess this is a substrate question, but also a legacy question, because first part of the question is there any substrate that you can't digitally print onto and personalize? And the second part of the question, and maybe Mark, you can give your view on this as well. The problem, as I see it, isn't necessarily the ability to produce personalized goods. It may well be the legacy brands and retailers who are unable to take orders for personalized goods. So where is that clunk in terms of being solved, and where do you see the solution in terms of being able to grow the opportunity? Because clearly the world of print is able to do lots of things, but it can only do what the customer asks it to do, if that makes sense. Kaspars, what's your thought on that? Was a long question, apologies.
Yeah, when you asked the first question, I started thinking about the first question, didn't that get that much the second part. But regarding the first question, and maybe you have different opinions, but I think you can pretty much everything print digitally. Like you can print a car digitally. I think right now, you have things like 3D printing. You can print anything you want digitally and also on demand. But again, getting to my previous point, the question is, again, how scalable that is. And I think that is, and again, why would you go to a car dealership and buy a car that, other 100,000 people have? Like, I mean, I would love to personalize my car. I would do it 100%. And I think that there is a consumer need there. It's just technology is not there, even though technically it can do it. It just wouldn't scale. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't think there's anything particularly which you can't print digitally, or maybe I can't recall. But yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, Mark, and to the second part of the question, is the growth for personalization going to come from the brand side, the retail side, being able to allow consumers to do exactly what Kaspars has just suggested?
I think it's an education point of view. From customization, I think the car industry actually started customizing or semi-customizing, because Henry Ford did that. It was a Model T Ford and it was black. You can have any color you want as long as it was black. And today, BMW, Mercedes, you've got a suite of options to choose from. And I think you can print your car digitally if you wanted to. I'm not sure. I think that I don't think that's scalable right now. But you can certainly customize your vehicle. But the costs of that sometimes, and the length and lead times, etc. Today's world, post-COVID, regarding supply chain, has caused and dented that level of personalization. But I think to answer the question about the art of the possible, supply chain, the print industry can basically do anything that people want it to do. There has to be a vehicle to get it to the masses and to make it simple and easy for people to understand what they can and can't do, which drives basically back to an educational point of view. If you take my kids are not scared of print. At the end of universities or the end of schools, you had caps, t-shirts, etc., bags, you name it. Okay, and that was fairly personal because that was to actually their school year. So they didn't have the barriers to the cost. And interesting, at the very beginning of this, because my kids are a bit older now, but they would bring home a cap or a t-shirt, and I'd look at it and go, that's awful. And they and I was looking at that from a print professional eye, rather than actually devaluing the company that actually printed that particular product, because at that time it was cutting edge. So I think the consumers now, both my kids have got houses and stuff, and they want things personal. They don't just want a standard build. They don't just want standard wallpaper. They want this pattern, the fabrics. But I think we've got to help the retailers understand and make it easy for them, to actually let the public know what is available and what is not available. But that's a difficult one. I don't quite know how we do that, bar mass education.
Well, maybe what we should do is invite them all to the personalization experience and have one big conversation inside the tent, and so everybody can understand. Because there's so many things that are possible, and I'm only half joking when I say that, by the way. There's so many things that are possible now, Kaspars, and it's you hear it all the time. I didn't know you could do that. How have you managed to do this? So maybe Mark's right. Maybe what we're missing here is a little bit of, and I don't like education because it sounds a bit patronizing, but certainly awareness of what's possible from the supply chain.
Yeah, and just to add to what you said before, and that is somehow related to, again, education, but also brands making it easier. And I can give you a perfect example, which you might find surprising. You can go right now on H&M, and you can go on Ralph Lauren, and you can pick a shirt or something, and you can really also customize your design. You can change the color of a teddy bear's sweater or something. You can do those things. The funny thing is that business is actually not huge. It's growing steadily, but it's, for most of these brands, it's like an experiment, like an R&D thing, but it's actually like a playground, nice to have, but it hasn't taken masses, which is a paradox, which effectively says that, hey, you're giving brand, and by the way, that the scalability part is solved, and also it's digitally printed, but it's not like every consumer wants to come in and necessarily customize their shirt or play around with graphics. For a lot of them, actually, it's too complicated. But what they want is for a brand to figure out what exactly they want and then personalize it that way. So they want to make it, they need to make it easier for the consumer.
That's
I'm not sure if that makes sense, but
no, it makes total sense, and actually chimes with a bit of information I was given years ago when I first got into the personalisation space, and it was with a greetings card company in the UK, and they gave me the point that if you ask people to design their own greetings card, 95% of them wouldn't know where to start. And so they don't as a result. But 5% of the graphic designers in the world will go, yeah, that's a great idea. So what they did as the solution was to present them with a greetings card that was 95% designed, and then they just added in their bit. I'm sure you can all guess who I'm talking about. Very successful company, but it took a while for them to realize that actually the public, the consumer at large, they might want to, but they don't know how to. And if they don't know how to, they won't. And that's the key part here. We're all quite rubbish as consumers in that regard. Certainly men. I speak for our gender. But you know, it's a real sort of, as you say, a paradox, Kaspars, that just because you can doesn't mean you will. You know, so how do we make that journey? How do we make that much more simplified for the consumer so that they do?
Well, great question. I think shortly, it's about maybe a very practical example, but it is about data. It is about data and the brand trying to figure out what the consumer wants instead of, and again, just making it very simple. Again, getting back to the example of your favorite lyrics for your favorite song. Okay, maybe a consumer didn't even know that, hey, you know, I can do that, or, you know, they don't go every day about, hey, technically they can do it. Like, it's not like they can't. Like, they can go to every site and pick a shirt and put their lyrics on a shirt. But when they see a Facebook ad or ad on Instagram, which is tailored for them with this lyrics already on, like, that's a different game. And I think that can work very well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, agreed. Mark, we're running out of time, so I just want to come to you quickly because you very kindly stayed up all night to talk to me, so I feel as though I should talk back. Just a sort of final thought from you, really, and with your view across certainly the spectrum of the US and the market that's available there now for consumers. What's the one thing, do you think? What's the killer app, if you like, that could be done to really explode this opportunity that Kaspars has so eloquently described?
That's a great question, and unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. I really don't. The US is ahead in so many ways from a personalization, customization side of things. You know, you can go into your UPS store, you can go into a Walmart, and you can get things done. But back to your point, you can only get things done to the point of having a picture on a stick, for instance, or you doing it yourself. So I think there is there's still an awful lot to be done yet to actually educate people of the art of the possible. And perhaps it's the social media world that actually does that. And the viral messaging, the lyrics of a song are great. I've seen them framed and on t-shirts, and what a great gift to give to somebody. And, you know, I saw a friend of mine did when they moved house, and they sent my daughter a list of their favorite song lyrics, and they were framed up, and it was such a beautiful. And I thought, where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that from? That was a really clever, a really nice, thoughtful idea.
Yeah, no, and that is always the key, isn't it? And Kaspars, you know, you at Printful are doing such a great job and leading the way really with personalisation 2.0. But what happens if the consumers are all still stuck in personalisation 1.0?
What happens? Good question.
I mean, saved the best to last, didn't he?
Sorry.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, consumer is the king. So, I mean, nothing really happens. It's just, you know, we have to deliver what the consumers want. Like, if they don't want and they sit there, it's not a problem. I mean, I don't think it's I think we just have to follow consumer trends and see where it's going. But if it's not going in the, as you say, consumer too, it's not like it's end of the world, I would say. It's just
the reason I asked the question is because, you know, if you're not careful, you develop past your customer. And you know, the industry is, and I say this with all due respect to anybody listening, but the industry is very good at wanting new things, but not necessarily supplying the old things better. And that's something that you know, we've seen a lot over the years, and it leads to that wonderful, ridiculous "is print dead" debate that we hear every now and again. You know,
one quick question.
Yeah,
sorry
sure.
to cut across you, Richard. What trends are you seeing at the moment? Is there anything new that's emerging and racing ahead? Obviously, Christmas is slightly different, but throughout the year, have you seen something that spiked your attention from the norm?
I see definitely, and that's again, I see from the portfolio of brands that I work with, we see definitely a more increased. You know, everybody's right now also because of e-commerce slowdown. Everybody's trying to figure out what are the new strategies that are working. Definitely reacting to trends and reacting to, I don't know, if there is a something big happening in the world. I know it can be a World Cup right now. So the brands, again, it's a relatively short term, right? It happens for a month, but brands are trying to react and try to associate them with that, and they're putting in out artwork that is related to this. And again, it's a perfect example of how to use made-to-order technology. Where again, if you were doing this in bulk and with inventory, who knows how much you would sell? Who knows where this inventory is going to be when the World Cup ends? Nobody really knows that. And now brands are really trying to stay relevant much more.
And you make a brilliant point and a great one to end on, Kaspars, that actually largely the opportunity is as much about improving the sort of the possibilities around guerrilla marketing, you know, event led marketing. You know, the good old days where you had to order a container full of something 12 months in advance and hope, you know, have largely gone. Gentlemen, we've run out of time, unfortunately. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I hope we can do this again. The idea of this podcast for anybody listening is a continuing conversation. So there isn't a beginning and a middle and an end, as you can probably tell, because we've only just about reached the middle. But Kaspars at Printful, thank you so much for your time. And Mark, thank you for getting up early to join me today. It's been a pleasure talking to you both, and we'll see you somewhere soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.